Orlando ground, Delta Tree 20.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Delta Sky Team and our global partners, welcome on board your Delta flight. As you're making your way to your seat, we kindly ask that you please step into your row and out of the aisle as quickly as possible to allow those passengers behind you to make their way to their seat as well. If you're traveling with a larger rollerboard, please place it in the overhead bins, either wheels or handles first on either side of the aircraft. Keeping in mind that the overhead bin space is shared space, so if the bin directly above your seat is already full, please go ahead and utilize the next available space. If you brought in a second item with you, such as a briefcase, tote bag, laptop bag, backpack, you can go ahead and utilize that space under the seat in front of you,
Delta Tree
so that we can utilize that overhead bin space for your larger bags without having to check them plain sight to your final destination. Feel free to utilize your mobile phones, tablets, and e-readers while we're here at the gate. However, once we close our boarding door, you must please place these items into airplane mode or turn off your cellular service.
Taxi to and hold short runway.
Please also note that if you will be working on a laptop computer or enjoying any other larger electronic devices, they must be stowed either in a bag under the seat in front of you or in the overhead bins. Please do not stow these items in the seat pocket in front of you, place them directly on the floor, or hold them on your lap during taxi, takeoff, and landing. This is not just a Delta policy, but an FAA regulation for your safety.
Delta Tree 20.
Delta Tree 20, continue taxi.
Roger, Delta Tree 20.
At this time, in just a few moments, we'll be showing you the safety video. Once the video has concluded, we'll be in the aisles to answer any questions you have before we're seated for taxi out. Again, thank you for choosing Delta today. My name is Susan. I'm your purser for today's flight, along with Charles in the economy cabin. We do welcome you aboard.
At Delta, we think our world feels smaller when you get out in it. That's why the best men and women in the business work each day to take you to the people, places, and cultures that make this world such an amazing place. Bringing the world closer together, one flight at a time.
We are a planet of amazing differences.
One of cultures and ideas that span our world and link us each to another, whoever you are.
Wherever you're going.
We are proud to fly you there.
Because the first step towards connection
is departure.
Welcome aboard, and thanks for flying with Delta.
Our first priority on every flight is the safety of our customers and crew. So, before we depart,
please pay attention to this important safety message.
Be sure that all carry-on items are securely stowed in an overhead bin, and place smaller items, including handbags, under the seat in front of you. If you lose your electronic device in your seat, please do not adjust your seat, and ask a crew member for assistance. Please ensure all aisles, exits, and bulkhead areas are clear.
As we leave the gate, make sure your seatbelt is fastened. To fasten, insert the metal tip into the buckle and adjust the strap so it's low and tight across your lap. To release the belt, just lift the top of the buckle. If you're seated in the business class cabin, secure your shoulder harness by attaching the metal tip to the fitting on the belt. To release, remove the metal tip and allow the shoulder harness to retract. Please remain seated with your seatbelt securely fastened anytime the seatbelt sign is on. And even if the sign is off, please keep your seatbelt fastened in case we experience unexpected rough air.
For everyone's safety, federal regulations require all passengers to comply with the posted placards and lighted information signs located throughout the cabin, in addition to any crew member's instructions.
Smoking, including the use of e-cigarettes, is not allowed on any Delta flight, and federal law prohibits tampering with, disabling, or destroying a restroom smoke detector.
There are 8 exits on this plane, 8 doors, 4 on each side. Each door has used as a raft. All exits are clearly marked with an exit sign. However, if there's a loss of power and cabin visibility is reduced, lights will illuminate the aisles to guide you to an exit.
Please note that exit signs on this airplane identify each exit with a green symbol. Arrows indicate the direction to the exit. Locate the exit nearest you using these green symbols, keeping in mind the nearest exit might be behind you. In the event of an evacuation, leave all carry-on items behind. It's unlikely, but if cabin pressure changes, the panels above your seat will open, revealing oxygen masks. If this happens, reach up and pull the mask or red streamer towards you until the tube is fully extended. Place the mask over your nose and mouth, slip the elastic strap over your head, and adjust the mask if necessary. Breathe normally and note that oxygen is flowing, so don't worry if the bag doesn't inflate. Be sure to adjust your own mask before helping others.
A water evacuation is also unlikely. But just in case, life vests are located under your seats in the main cabin. If you're seated in the business class or Delta Premium Select cabin, life vests are located either in a compartment adjacent to your seat or under your armrest. To use, remove the vest from its container by pulling on the tab and then opening the pouch. Slip the vest over your head. Wrap the strap around your waist and attach it to the buckle in front, and adjust securely around your waist. As you leave the plane, inflate the vest by pulling down on the red tab at the bottom of the vest, or manually inflate it by blowing into the tube at shoulder level.
A water-activated light is attached to each vest. If necessary, we'll distribute additional life vests for children who weigh 35 pounds or less.
Now, before we take off, be sure your seat is upright and your tray table is put away. If you're seated in the business class cabin, ensure your suite door is open. Please note there is a placard on the door, visible when open, explaining how to use the suite door in case of an emergency. If you're seated in the main cabin, ensure your aisle armrests are lowered, and in the Delta Premium Select cabin, ensure your aisle armrests are raised.
As we come through the cabin for our final safety check, please let us know if you have any questions. And finally, now would be a good time for everyone to review the safety information card, which is in your seat pocket.
As we span this amazing world of ours, we celebrate all the connections. Thank you for choosing Delta to be a part of your journey.
Now, as we get ready for takeoff, please sit back, settle in, and have a wonderful flight. Thank you for flying with Delta.
Frontier Flight 1234 Heavy Pushback request accepted. Orlando Ground Spirit Wings 1107 Heavy requesting pushback. Spirit Wings 1107 Heavy pushback request accepted. Orlando Ground Frontier Flight 1234 Heavy requesting the end of pushback. Frontier Flight 1234 Heavy request to end pushback received. Orlando Ground Spirit Wings 1107 Heavy requesting the end of pushback. Spirit Wings 1107 Heavy request to end pushback received.
Orlando Tower Delta Tree 20 ready at runway tree 6 right north departure.
Delta Tree 201077 at 11. Departure to the north approved. Cleared for takeoff runway tree 6 right.
Cleared for takeoff runway tree 6 right Delta Tree 20.
Ladies and gentlemen, Captain has switched on the seatbelt sign. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelt. Thank you.
Delta Tree 20 continue for north departure.
Delta Tree 20 leaving my airspace frequency change approved.
Orlando Tower Delta Tree 20 frequency change. Orlando approach Delta Tree 20 is type Airbus 2 miles northeast of 0 Foxtrot Lima 5, 600 feet. Request clearance to transition Bravo airspace.
Delta Tree 20 Orlando approach. Squawk 1705.
Squawk 1705, Delta Tree 20.
Delta Tree 20 radar contact 3 miles south of executive 1,000 feet. Cleared through the Bravo airspace.
Cleared through the Bravo airspace, Delta Tree 20.
Ladies and gentlemen, Captain has turned off the seatbelt sign. For your safety, we do recommend that you keep them on as we can get unexpected turbulence. Thank you.
Delta 320, you're leaving my airspace radar service terminated. Squawk 1200. Frequency change approved.
Squawk 1200. Frequency change approved. Delta Tree 20. Daytona approach Delta Tree 20 is type Airbus 8 miles north of Orlando, 3,300 feet. Request flight following.
Delta Tree 20 Daytona approach. Squawk 2047.
Squawk 2047 Delta Tree 20.
Delta Tree 20 radar contact 7 miles east of Niner Tree Foxtrot Lima, 3,700 feet. Altimeter tree 0.12.
Roger Delta Tree 20.
At this time, in just a few...
Ladies and gentlemen, as we climb to our cruising altitude, we'd like to extend a special thank you to each of you, and a welcome back to our SkyMile members and Million Milers. Your business and loyalty are greatly appreciated by the entire Delta family. For your safety, it's important to remain seated with your seatbelt securely fastened anytime the seatbelt sign is on. Even if the sign is off, please keep your seatbelt fastened in case we experience any unexpected rough air. We ask that you also please remember to use caution if opening the overhead bins to prevent injury from articles that may have shifted during takeoff. We've now reached an altitude where it's safe to use approved electronic devices, and a listing of these devices can be found in Sky Magazine in the seat pocket in front of you. On today's flight in the economy cabin, it'll be our pleasure to offer you complimentary Coca-Cola products, Starbucks coffee, water, juices, a variety of complimentary snacks, as well as a selection of our fresh eats items and all-day goodies. Beer, wine, and spirits are available, complimentary for our first class and Delta Comfort Plus passengers, as well as available for purchase for the main cabin. A complete listing of available beverages, as well as of our fresh eats items, can be found in the menus in your seat pocket. Please be reminded that Delta accepts only major credit or debit cards for onboard purchases of beverages and snacks. However, you can use your Delta SkyMiles American Express card to save 15% and earn double miles on all Delta purchases. For your enjoyment, each seat is equipped with your own personal entertainment system. On it, you can view a selection of complimentary as well as on-demand TV shows, movies, and music. You will find that this screen will work best with just a light tap of your fingertip. Feel free to use your own headsets. Otherwise, if you do need a headset, just let a flight attendant know they are yours complimentary for this and any future Delta flights.
Delta 320, contact Daytona, approach on 125.8. Good day.
125.8 Delta Tree 20. Goodbye. Daytona approach Delta Tree 20 5,100 feet.
Delta 320 Daytona, approach altimeter 30.14 radar contact, continue. 200 feet, descending 2,000 feet. Cessna November Tree 5 Charlie Sierra Daytona, approach altimeter 30.14 radar contact, continue. Delta 320, contact Jacksonville, approach on 120.75. Good day.
120.75, Delta 320. Goodbye. Jacksonville, approach Delta 320, 8,100 feet.
Delta 320, Jacksonville, approach altimeter 30.14 radar contact, continue.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we climb to our cruising altitude, we'd like to extend a special thank you to each of you and a welcome back to our SkyMile members and Million Milers. Your business and loyalty are greatly appreciated by the entire Delta family. For your safety, it's important to remain seated with your seatbelt securely fastened anytime the seatbelt sign is on. Even if the sign is off, please keep your seatbelt fastened in case we experience any unexpected rough air. We ask that you also please remember to use caution if opening the overhead bins to prevent injury from articles that may have shifted during takeoff. We've now reached an altitude where it's safe to use approved electronic devices, and a listing of these devices can be found in Sky Magazine in the seat pocket in front of you. On today's flight in the economy cabin, it'll be our pleasure to offer you complimentary Coca-Cola products, Starbucks coffee, water, juices, a variety of complimentary snacks, as well as a selection of our fresh eats items and all-day goodies.
Jacksonville Center, Delta Tree 209,000.
Beer, wine, and spirits are available, complimentary for our first class and Delta Comfort Plus passengers, as well as available for purchase for the main cabin. A complete listing of available beverages, as well as of our fresh eats items, can be found in the menus in your seat pocket. Please be reminded that Delta accepts only major credit or debit cards for onboard purchases of beverages and snacks. However, you can use your Delta SkyMiles American Express card to save 15% and earn double miles on all Delta purchases. For your enjoyment, each seat is equipped with your own personal entertainment system. On it, you can view a selection of complimentary as well as on-demand TV shows, movies, and music. You will find that this screen will work best with just a light tap of your fingertip. Feel free to use your own headsets. Otherwise, if you do need a headset, just let a flight attendant know they are yours complimentary for this and any future Delta flights.
Delta Tree 20, contact Jacksonville Center on 126.75. Good day.
126.75, Delta Tree 20. Goodbye. Jacksonville Center, Delta Tree 2010,600 feet.
Delta Tree 20, Jacksonville Center, altimeter 30.15 radar contact, continue.
Delta A320 have the traffic.
Boeing 420 have the traffic. Boeing 420 contact Jacksonville approach on 120.75. Good day. Going to 120.75, Boeing 420. Flight traffic is 2 o'clock 4 miles at flight level 250 TBM 9. Report them in sight. Delta Sierra, you are 43 miles north. Descend and maintain 2,000 feet. Expect vectors visual runway 9er approach. Descend and maintain 2,000 feet. Expect vectors visual runway 9er approach Cessna 5 Delta Sierra. Cessna 9er Romeo Charlie traffic is 7 o'clock 4 miles at flight level 400 Boeing B-78X. Report them in sight. Cessna 9er Romeo Charlie traffic is 7 o'clock 4 miles at flight level 400 Boeing B-78X. Report them in sight. traffic is 2 o'clock 4 miles at 4,400 feet, Cessna Skyhawk. Report them in sight. Cessna 5 Delta Sierra traffic is 3 o'clock 4 miles at 6,700 feet, Cessna Skyhawk. Report them in sight. Cessna 4 Sierra Mike, have the traffic. Cessna 5 Delta Sierra traffic in sight. Delta 320 contact Jacksonville Center on 120.85. Good day. Cessna 9er Romeo Charlie contact Jacksonville Center on 120.85. Good day.
Going to 120.85 Delta Tree 20. Jacksonville Center, Delta Tree 20 flight level 190.
Delta 320 Jacksonville Center radar contact continue. Jacksonville Center Cessna November 4 9er Romeo Charlie is passing flight level 370, climbing flight level 390. Cessna November 4 9er Romeo Charlie Jacksonville Center radar contact continue. speed, expect vectors, visual runway tree approach, envoy tree 86 tree heavy. Envoy tree 86 tree heavy, contact Jacksonville approach on 132.925. Good day. Envoy tree 86 tree heavy. Goodbye. Jacksonville Center, envoy tree 86 tree heavy, 7,000 feet. Envoy tree 86 tree heavy, Jacksonville Center, altimeter tree 0.2 tree, radar contact, continue.
Jacksonville Center, Delta Tree 20 flight level 265.
Delta Tree 20 Jacksonville Center, radar contact, continue. 123.528 Heavy, contact Jacksonville Center on 124.7. Good day. Envoy tree 528 Heavy. Goodbye. Generic 6 Alpha Delta, you're 42 miles south. Climb and maintain 6,000 feet. Expect ILS runway 5 approach via LES transition. Cleared to LES. Climb and maintain 6,000 feet. Expect ILS runway 5 approach via LES transition. Cleared to LES. Generic 6 Alpha Delta. Jacksonville Center, Envoy tree 528 Heavy is at 13,700 feet, climbing flight level 180. Envoy tree 528 Heavy, Jacksonville Center, altimeter tree 0.27, radar contact, continue to Ninja. Envoy tree 528 Heavy, contact Jacksonville Center on 124.7. Good day. Jacksonville Center, Allegiant 249er 1 Heavy is at flight level tree 75, descending flight level tree 60. Allegiant 249er 1 Heavy, Jacksonville Center, radar contact, continue to SSPAZ. Delta tree 20, contact Jacksonville Center on 124.7. Good day.
Going to 124.7 Delta Tree 20. Jacksonville Center, Delta Tree 20, flight level tree 05.
Delta tree 20, Jacksonville Center, radar contact, continue. Jacksonville Center, Envoy tree 528 Heavy is at 10,700 feet, climbing flight level 180. Envoy tree 528 Heavy, Jacksonville Center, altimeter tree 0.1, radar contact, continue to OSPRI. Cessna 55 Juliet, traffic is 1 o'clock 1 miles at flight level tree 20 Airbus. Report them in sight. Delta tree 20, traffic is 3 o'clock 4 miles at flight level tree 60 Airbus A320N. Report them in sight.
Delta Tree 20 have the traffic.
Cessna 55 Juliet, contact Jacksonville Center on 132.5. Good day. Cessna 55 Juliet. Goodbye. 20 traffic is 1 o'clock 4 miles at flight level 360, Boeing B-78X. Report them in sight.
Delta 320 have the Boeing B-78X in sight.
Climb and maintain 6,000 feet. Expect vectors visual runway 13 approach Cessna 6 tree. Delta 320 traffic is 11 o'clock 4 miles at flight level 380 Boeing. Report them in sight.
Delta 320 traffic in sight. Cessna 68 Whiskey, you are 16 miles southwest. Climb and maintain 3,900 feet. Expect vectors visual runway 3 approach. Climb and maintain 3,900 feet. Expect vectors visual runway 3 approach Cessna 68 Whiskey. Traffic is 11 o'clock 4 miles at 4,600 feet Cessna Skyhawk. Report them in sight. Cessna 5 Golf Alpha traffic is 2 o'clock 4 miles at 7,800 feet Cessna Skyhawk. Report them in sight. Korean Air Force 3635 Niner Heavy, you are 54 miles west. Descend and maintain 2,200 feet. Expect vectors visual runway 5 approach. Cessna 0 Hotel Papa, have the Cessna Skyhawk in sight. Descend and maintain 2,200 feet. Expect vectors visual runway 5 approach Korean Air Force 3635 Niner Heavy. Delta Tree 20 have the traffic.
Wings 1107 Heavy, you are 48 miles southeast. Climb and maintain flight level 180. Expect ILS runway 36 right approach via Hecom transition. Cleared to Hecom. American 1419er Heavy, you are 40 miles southeast. Descend and maintain 10,000 feet. Expect ILS runway 36 right approach via Hecom transition. Cleared to Hecom. Cessna 68 Whiskey Airport is at your 2 o'clock 12. Descend and maintain 6,000 feet. Expect ILS runway 36 right approach via Hecom transition. Cleared to Hecom. Spirit Wings 1107 Heavy. Descend and maintain 6,000 feet. Expect ILS runway 36 right approach via Hecom transition. Cleared to Hecom. American 1419er Heavy. American 1419er Heavy, contact Atlanta Center on 133.15. Good day. Delta Tree 20, contact Atlanta Center on 133.15. Good day. Going to 133.15, American 1419er Heavy. Cessna 810, you are 49er miles southeast. Descend and maintain 12,000 feet. Expect ILS runway 36 right approach via Hecom transition. Cleared to Hecom.
133.15, Delta Tree 20. Goodbye. Atlanta Center, Delta Tree 20 flight level tree 85.
Delta Tree 20, Atlanta Center, radar contact continue.
Delta Tree 20 traffic in sight.
Wings 1107 Heavy, contact Charlotte approach on 120.5. Good day. Atlanta Center says that Juliet Romeo Echo 810 is at 9,300 feet, descending 6,000 feet. Cessna Juliet Romeo Echo 810 Atlanta Center altimeter 30.38 radar contact, continue to Hecom. 134.75 American 1419er Heavy. Goodbye. Going to 120.5 Spirit Wings 1107 Heavy. Cessna 810, contact Charlotte approach on 128.325. Good day. Cessna 810. Goodbye. Atlanta Center Blue Streak 534 tree is passing 10,700 feet, climbing 12,000 feet. Blue Streak 5347 Heavy, contact Charlotte approach on 128.325. Good day. Blue Streak 5347 Heavy. Goodbye. Cessna 6 Kilo Juliet, you are 22 miles east. Descend and maintain 4,000 feet. Expect ILS runway 20 approach via Golf Sierra Oscar transition. Cleared to Golf Sierra Oscar. Descend and maintain 4,000 feet. Expect ILS runway 20 approach via Golf Sierra Oscar transition. Cleared to Golf Sierra Oscar, Cessna 6 Kilo Juliet. sight.
Delta Tree 20 have the traffic.
128.8 American 628 Heavy. Goodbye. 128.8 United 1920 Heavy. Goodbye. Cessna 6 Kilo Juliet, contact Charlotte approach on 128.325. Good day. Delta Tree 20, contact Atlanta Center on 125.15. Good day.
125.15 Delta Tree 20. Goodbye. Atlanta Center, Delta Tree 20 flight level tree 85.
Delta Tree 20 Atlanta Center, radar contact continue. Delta Tree 20 traffic is 9 o'clock 4 miles at flight level tree 80 Airbus A320N. Report them in sight.
Delta Tree 20 have the traffic.
United 19 1119er 20 Heavy, contact Atlanta Center on 128.8. Good day. Tower on 119er 1 Cessna 65 Golf. Going to 128.8 United 19er 20 Heavy. traffic is 1 o'clock 4 miles at flight level 360 Boeing B-78X. Report them in sight.
Delta 320 have the Boeing B-78X in sight.
Delta 320 contact Washington Center on 134.4. Good day.
134.4 Delta 320. Goodbye. Washington Center, Delta 320 flight level 385.
Delta 320 Washington Center radar contact continue. United 2410 heavy traffic is 1 o'clock 4 miles at flight level 330 Airbus 8. Delta 320 traffic is 10 o'clock 4 miles at flight level 380 Airbus A320N. Report them in sight. Allegiant 883 heavy traffic is 9 o'clock 3 miles at flight level 385 Airbus. Report them in sight.
Delta Tree 20 have the Airbus A20N in sight.
Allegiant 883 heavy traffic in sight.
Delta Tree 20 have the Airbus A20N in sight. 128.6 Delta Tree 20. Goodbye. Washington Center, Delta Tree 20 flight level tree 40.
Delta Tree 20 Washington Center radar contact continue. Southwest 2863 heavy contact Washington Center on 134.4. Good day. Going to 134.4 Southwest 2863 heavy. American 1253 heavy traffic is 11 o'clock, 4 miles at flight level tree 35 Airbus. Report them in sight. Delta Tree 20 traffic is 4 o'clock, 2 miles at flight level tree 40, Boeing B-78X. Report them in sight.
Delta Tree 20 traffic in sight.
Delta Tree 20 traffic is 1 o'clock, 4 miles at flight level tree 60, Airbus A320N. Report them in sight.
Delta Tree 20 have the traffic.
American 1253 heavy Airbus in sight. 126.905. Good day.
Going to 126.905 Delta Tree 20. Cleveland Center Delta Tree 20 flight level 2905.
Delta Tree 20 Cleveland Center radar contact continue. 1 kilo, contact Cleveland Center on 120.4. Good day. Delta 320, contact Cleveland Center on 128.45. Good day. 120.4 Cessna 81 kilo. Goodbye.
Going to 128.45 Delta 320. Cleveland Center, Delta 320, flight level 245.
Delta 320, Cleveland Center, radar contact, continue. Brickyard 4684, heavy traffic is 9 o'clock 4 miles at flight level 250 Airbus. Report them in sight. Delta 320, traffic is 1 o'clock 3 miles at flight level 265 Airbus A320N. Report them in sight. Brickyard 4684, heavy contact Cleveland Center on 126.95. Good day.
Delta 320 have the traffic.
Going to 126.95, Brickyard 4684, heavy.
0.475 Delta Tree 20. Cleveland Center Delta Tree 20 flight level 210.
Delta Tree 20 Cleveland Center radar contact continue. Delta Tree 20, contact Cleveland Center on 132.4. Good day.
Going to 1 tree, 2 decimal for Delta Tree 20. Cleveland Center Delta Tree 20, 15,400 feet.
Delta Tree 20, Cleveland Center altimeter, tree 0 decimal tree 7, radar contact, continue. contact Cleveland approach on 127.075. Good day.
127.075, Delta Tree 20. Goodbye. Cleveland approach Delta Tree 20, 11,500 feet.
Delta Tree 20, Cleveland approach altimeter 30.40 radar contact continue. Contact Buffalo approach on 126.5. Good day.
126.5, Delta Tree 20. Goodbye. Buffalo approach Delta Tree 2010,400 feet.
Delta Tree 20 Buffalo approach altimeter 30.39 radar contact continue. Delta Tree 20, contact Cleveland Center on 125.2. Good day.
125.2 Delta Tree 20. Goodbye. Cleveland Center Delta Tree 20, 7,700 feet.
Delta Tree 20, Cleveland Center altimeter tree 0.41 radar contact continue. Delta Tree 20, contact Toronto Center on 128.275. Good day.
128.275 Delta Tree 20. Goodbye. Toronto Center Delta Tree 20, 6,800 feet.
Delta Tree 20, Toronto Center altimeter tree 0.43 radar contact continue. Delta Tree 20, contact Hamilton, approach on 119.7. Good day.
119.7 Delta Tree 20. Goodbye. Hamilton approach Delta Tree 20, 6,100 feet.
Delta Tree 20, Hamilton approach altimeter tree 0.43 radar contact continue.
Hamilton approach Delta Tree 20. Request clearance to transition Charlie airspace.
Delta Tree 20 Hamilton approach. Cleared through the Charlie airspace.
Cleared through Charlie airspace, Delta Tree 20.
Delta Tree 20 contact Toronto Center on 124.925. Good day.
124.925 Delta Tree 20. Goodbye. Toronto Center, Delta Tree 20 4,500 feet.
Delta Tree 20 Toronto Center altimeter 30.45 radar contact continue. Delta Tree 20 contact approach on 133.4. Good day.
133 for Delta Tree 20. Goodbye.
Airbus Hotel November Sierra contact approach on 124.47. Good day.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our descent, we request that you return to your seat and make sure your seatbelt is securely fastened low and tight across your lap. If you've taken out any carry-on items, please make sure they are safely stowed underneath the seat in front of you or in the overhead bin. Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our descent, we request that you return to your seat and make sure your seatbelt is securely fastened low and tight across your lap. If you've taken out any carry-on items, please make sure they are safely stowed underneath the seat in front of you or in the overhead bin.
Delta 320, follow the Airbus on final. Wind 150 at 8. Clear to land runway 33 right.
Clear to land runway tree right, Delta 320.
Please remain in your seat with your seatbelt fastened until the aircraft has departed the gate and the captain turns off the fasten belt sign. This will be your only indication that it's safe to standing over your personal belongings. Also, use caution as you open the overhead bins as items do have a tendency to shift during flight. For those of you wishing to use your cell phones, it is now safe for you to do so. As a reminder, your laptop computers must remain stowed until we're parked at the gate. It has certainly been our pleasure bringing you today. Looks like you have an absolutely gorgeous day ahead of you. We certainly hope when your future plans call for your travel that you'll once again select Delta Airlines. Thank you and have a great time here.
Delta 320, contact ground on 121.9er.
121.9er Delta 320. Goodbye. Ground Delta 320 taxi to the gate.
Delta 320 taxi to gate 23 using taxiway Romeo Alpha Tango.
Taxiing to gate 23 using taxiway Romeo Alpha Tango Delta 320.
After a while, you guys run fast.
So he's straight on there, son.
He was just sitting there bored watching TV. And they yelled at you.
Yeah.